Hey everyone! So I'm really excited because this is the first garden tour of 2022. So last year I did garden tours from I think it was April to December on the first of every month, and it was one of my favorite things I did because I really got to see how much changed throughout the month. I feel like when you are kind of in the garden every day, you don't notice how much you've really accomplished, and being able to look back at the garden tours was just a real treat for me. So I'm excited to start this up again. I don't really do anything from January to March as far as tours because there's not really a lot that's changing, but there are definitely some things that are growing in the garden now in April. It is April 3rd, 4th. Basically, it's not the first today, and I'm not going to be as strict as I was last year with always doing them on the first of the month because the weather doesn't always cooperate. So I'm just going to try to get it done the first few days of every month so that I can show you what's growing and what has changed since the previous month. I will link down the playlist of 2021's garden tours in case you want to check that out. I think August is probably my favorite one if you kind of want to see everything at the peak last year. What I'm also excited about this year is having last year's videos to compare it to. So I know that April of last year, I think maybe I had some radishes, but I don't know if I had a bunch of anything else in the garden. I think it might have just been the radishes. I'll have to go back and check for myself, but there's definitely more in the beds and the containers this year. I'm also excited to see so much growing because this winter has felt like the longest winter ever. We got some nice like 70, 60 degree days, but maybe only a handful in March. And then the last week or so it's been snowing and cold, and it's still pretty cold, but we at least have some sunshine today. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at how the garden looks in early April. If this is the first garden tour you are watching, I garden in my balcony deck here in Chicago. We are zone 6A, and my space is about 18 by 19 square feet. So I try to make the most of the space that I have up here. But I like to start off with my center raised bed because this is typically what I consider to be like the showpiece of my garden. I'll plant my favorite things here, and I actually don't think I had anything growing last April. I think I waited until I had like the warm weather flowers, petunias, zinnias, and I think it just was empty until then. But last fall, I planted a bunch of tulips, and they are all coming up. I was getting nervous because they were definitely taking longer than tulips that I saw on the ground, but I've definitely learned that the tulips in containers take a little bit longer to wake up because it's not as warm when you have them in containers, even containers that are a little bit larger. So I have a bunch of tulips in here, a variety of colors, so I'm excited to see what this looks like when they start blooming. Down here I have some containers right now, and I will say in a container garden, one of the nice things is you can move things around. So I've been moving them around a lot, especially early spring, just to make the most of the sunshine that we do have. I do think I'm going to keep at least 2 of these gray pots up here throughout the season, but we'll kind of see how it goes. In this pot and this pot, I have delphiniums that I planted last year, and I was excited to see if they would be coming back, and it appears that they will be. So this was a delphinium that was specifically for containers. I think last year I also had petunias around it. I'm maybe going to put some pansies in that I just picked up, but we'll see. Over here, I have pansies and tulips, the same in this container. These I both planted up this spring, so I did not plant these bulbs in the fall. I just got them this spring, I think within the last couple days. So I just planted these up to add some sort of color to my garden here. I just have another pot here full of flowers that I've forgotten what they are, but I thought the pink went nice with the orange and the purple. And then another delphinium that is starting to sprout right there. So I am starting to figure out which plants seem to have survived the winter on my deck and which haven't. I'll be making a whole separate video about that and my experience with overwintering things in containers. But moving along over here, I have a rose tree that I got last fall because it was on sale, and it's the only rose plant that I have ever had. So I'm excited to learn more about how to take care of this year. This yellow pot down here has an iris in it. That one does appear to be coming back. I have a grape plant here, and then another iris that I don't think is going to make it. I showed this in another video, but it definitely feels squishy from the amount of rain that we've gotten. I'm going to leave it here just to see what happens, and then I will probably pull it and repot something else in here. So that is the front and the side of this center raised bed. before I head behind it, just want to swing over here. I have my table and chairs that I have uncovered for the season. In this back bed here, I have more tulips. I don't have as many coming up, but I also don't think I planted as many back here. So we will see how this does, but there's still a good amount, mostly in the back row and up front, a little bit sparse here and here. But I do have some that are still just poking through the soil. So I'm hoping those will fill in pretty nicely. I have an empty pot here that I will be putting a blueberry plant in that I have. These two grow bags are empty, so they're just sitting there. I have my blueberry bush that I planted last year. Some more tulips that I threw in this container that seem to be coming up. And then I have my raspberry bush right here, which is starting to bud up nicely as well. Let's move over here so I can get my shadow out of the way, but this is the blueberry plant that I will be potting up this week. This is, I forget the variety right now. Actually, let me pull this up. This is the Vaccinium Sunshine Blue Dwarf Blueberry. So this is a smaller variety, so I'm excited to have it in my container garden. The other one I'm pretty sure is just a regular blueberry plant, but it was pretty small when I got it. I have another little pot here of some pansies that are looking kind of sad from the rain and the cold, but hoping that they perk up soon here. Then in the back I have my 3 largest grow bags, which are 30-gallon grow bags. There's nothing in them right now. Definitely going to grow a tomato in one of these, probably some of the giant zinnias in another, but I put a lot of my garden waste in here last year, which was my first year doing that, so I'm hoping that that has decomposed pretty nicely throughout the winter. Nothing in this bag, nothing in that bag. Back here, so these 2 lighter brown pots have my rhubarb in them, and these are also starting to come back, so I'm excited about that. My aronia berry bush is in this darker brown container, and this one is also starting to flush back as well. So I've never grown aronia berry before. I got this plant last year. There's some, obviously, like more grassy-like growth here, which I don't know if that is normal as part of the bush, or if that is just some grass that was attached to the plant when I bought it. So if you have experience with aronia berry, also called chokeberry, let me know. But I am excited to see this one budding up again for the season. So that's what I have back here. Then I have this raised bed, which I couldn't remember if I planted bulbs in it. It wasn't in my bulb planting video, but there is 1 tulip poking up right there, and 1 right there. So I don't know if this bed is just going to have 2 tulips, or if I'm going to be surprised by some other stuff growing in there, but we will find out. Over here I have my flower box with a trellis that I grew sweet peas on last year. I'm not going to do that this year. I'm going to do morning glories. This container is empty. And then over here I have the beets and radishes that I planted. So beets, 2 radishes, and then beets back there. And definitely it was nice when I planted it, and then we got much colder weather for the next few days. So these are definitely lagging behind what I typically see when I plant beets and radishes. So you can see the radishes are just starting to poke up, and those will usually come up much faster than what I've been seeing this year. And then the beets are also just starting to sprout. I don't even know if you can see that right there. But basically, these have definitely been delayed as Mother Nature has been much colder this time around. Swinging over here, I have another flower box with a trellis. I'm going to do the same thing, morning glories on that side. Then I have 3 strawberry plants, which technically there's 2 plants in here. These 2 were runners that I propagated, so we'll see if those start flushing back or not. And then I have some herbs that I overwintered outside as well. So this whole section here, haven't seen much green growth yet. We will see what happens though, hopefully over the next few weeks. And then coming around to the back wall here, this is just where I basically have all of my storage. So 2 more trellises here, all of my cages, a shelf for my herbs, my hose, which I finally turned on the water and put the actual hose connector back on, because last year I left it on and it rusted to the hose itself. And so I had to use that hose somewhere else because I wanted to put a hose wand on it and I couldn't get the other one off. So lesson learned, to take your little hose wands off over the winter. I'm sure most people actually do know that. But I have my soil, compost, and then over here, I have my 3 hydrangeas. They have not started to flush back yet, but I am seeing some green budding. This one had a bunch of water dumped on it, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it will survive, but that's the only one I'm a little bit worried about. And then I have some more compost, a garbage can, and my watering can over here. But that is everything that is happening in my garden right now. So that is how my garden is looking in early April of this year. I'm really excited because I didn't do much early spring last year. Like I mentioned, I kind of waited till after the last frost to get most of the things planted, but just having stuff growing, even if it's not a ton, it just brings me a lot of joy, especially after such a long and cold winter. So I hope you enjoyed seeing kind of what's happening in my garden so far this year, and I'm excited to see how it changes. It's definitely going to be a little bit different than last year, but that's part of the fun of it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.